Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. Tonight, we are talking about our first Oscars contender in a long time. Time is an interesting word for for that sentence. We're talking about We Live in Time, Florence Pugh, Andrew Garfield. Give them all the awards for this movie. It's so good. Gentlemen, what'd you think?
I mean, it was devastating to a certain extent, right? But it honestly didn't break me that much. But like it was still beautiful. Um, and I really liked it. I think the performances were great, from both Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. Um, it yeah, I mean, we all knew kind of what was gonna happen at the end. Like she was clearly gonna die. But I think they did it in a way that like I'm glad that they didn't show it. I think the it was just like you, it was done without being said, and I like that. I think the representation of someone with cancer um was done gorgeously. That's exactly what it's like. Um yeah, I mean, really good, really good, really sad, but really good.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with most of those parts. I think the performances are really good. I think it's an interesting idea to do it non-linearly. I think that probably helped and hurt the movie at some points.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I thought it was a very good movie. I still don't. I'm not sure if this like the story is absolutely told through two people's lives essentially. I didn't feel like the story was very clear in some points because of the way that it told the story.
Okay.
But yeah, overall, I very much enjoyed it. I just don't know whether I like that aspect as much. I understand the idea, obviously, but sometimes it kind of abandoned itself. Maybe like 70% way through, where it just went back to like linear storytelling.
Yeah, it sort of
Um,
honed in on one time period, beginning of the third act.
yeah, and I think that works for the emotional impact. I think the nonlinear stuff is interesting, but it does kind of hurt the emotional impact because you're simultaneously seeing, all the good times and the bad, which I don't know, maybe that's the point. Like just appreciating the time we have to live,
Mhm.
using
Yeah.
the most of it.
I think that was a deliberate choice. Um,
Yeah, it's
to
definitely deliberate.
Yeah, but to show the good with the bad, basically up until the end. Again, we can figure out when exactly it sort of again hones in on that one, the present, we'll say. Um, but I
You can
was
her haircut.
thrown a what was that?
You can tell through her haircuts.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, after a
Um,
certain point, for sure.
I was thrown a little bit the first 7 minutes of the movie when we've seen two or three different time periods already, and then the cancer diagnosis happens. And I thought, oh, the whole movie is going to be just when she has cancer. What about everything I saw in the trailer? And then I
Mhm.
realized nonlinear storytelling, which I am a big fan of that as a narrative device. I think, you know, obviously Tarantino does it really well with like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, but those are very different movies from what we're dealing with here. And to present a romantic comedy drama with a really, really heavy theme like the one we have in We Live in Time is, I think, a really, really nice, not nice, but a strong choice to show that good with the bad, to let these actors. play around with each other in different time periods in a way that still tells their story, but doesn't give us everything of any one time all at once.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I felt like we were getting it's like a fleeting memories kind of a thing. But to your point, George, I was also confused at the beginning and thrown off a little bit because he gets hit by the car and then, we don't and this is right before that, he's signing divorce papers with someone whose name we don't even know. And I'm like, oh shit, wait, he's divorcing Florence Pugh like 4 minutes into the
I
movie
had the
because we
same
don't know
thought.
her name yet. And then immediately, obviously, it gets resolved. But for a moment, I was like, wait, what? Um,
Yeah, it's moments like that where it's like, I mean, it doesn't hurt the film that much, but it is a little bizarre. Like some of the early scenes, especially, because romance, you typically, you establish the relationship in the beginning, and in the beginning of this one, it's just like all over the place. Um, so again, I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm not as big of a fan of nonlinear storytelling all the time. Sometimes I like it, but
Yeah, I'm not
I
saying
I
across
just
the
find it
board.
too yeah.
It, it's not a universality for me to say, oh, this movie is nonlinear storytelling. That means I'm going to enjoy it. No,
No, I'm
I
just saying
think
I am more of a biased against it, I guess. So
okay.
maybe
That's
that's
I mean
why.
that's fair. But I think it works well here because the relationship that we get between Tobias and Alma is so real through the performances of these two and the world around them that it differs enough from a movie like 500 Days of Summer, where we're also seeing the arc of a relationship in a nonlinear way, where these two characters, again, like Max said, we know how their story is going to end here because, again, we get the cancer diagnosis in the first 7, 8 minutes of the movie. But the way that we get there through the nonlinear storytelling and the way that they approach telling the story of their relationship, how they meet, how they fall in love, how they handle the diagnosis and the treatment, it's just, I don't know. There's a certain level of authenticity to it that I don't think, and I love 500 Days of Summer, but there's a certain level of authenticity
I
to this relationship that just makes the movie click and hum no matter which time period we're in, whether it's when they first meet and are falling in love, or when she first gets diagnosed, or when she's struggling to get back into her career and her competition. It all just, no matter when we are, and we jump a lot in the first two acts, but you're always, once I got into the idea of the nonlinear storytelling, I was always able to pick up on where we are and where we had left off and how long it had been since the last time we were in this time period. It all worked. And this takes
yeah, I
place
mean,
over years.
yeah,
This is a decade of their lives together.
I don't know. I mean, I think it kind of hampers it a little bit sometimes too, because there were points where there were these big emotional moments like the cancer diagnosis, and then others that I'm just escaping me right now. But then you jump back to a time that they're happy and everything's fine, and it I don't know, it felt like it messed with the flow of the film. And I get it,
I
right?
yeah,
I
I
don't
think it
know.
hurts the tension for emotional stuff. Like I just feel like a lot of this stuff doesn't hit as hard as it should. It's like there are definitely moments where it's like, wow, that's, very depressing, but it didn't last very long
I think
because they're moving around.
if they had held the cancer diagnosis reveal, we'll say, until end of the second act, and we had just seen the good times in the first two acts of the first few years of their relationship, then yes, I agree that the weight of these nicer moments, or not the weight, but the levity of these nicer moments would feel more authentic without the weight dragging us down of remembering we know how this ends because we've seen the cancer diagnosis and we've seen her going into treatment, even though
Hmm.
we're still going to see more of these earlier times. That's always in the back of our head with the nonlinear storytelling. So I can sort of see how in this context that might take away from the viewing experience. For me, it amplified it. It enhanced it where
It
I
kind of
I could
like
I appreciated the lighter moments more because of what I knew was gonna bless you, because of what I knew was gonna happen, bless you, in
like
the rest of the film.
yeah, for me it kind of like numbed it. It was like I just knew she was gonna die the entire time. Even though she was like going into remission at one point or like they were doing treatment, I knew exactly where it was going. Um,
And it had to, right?
yeah, I will give it a little bit of a negative. I mean, I guess it's tough. I don't like cancer stories that much. I don't enjoy
I don't
watching
know anyone
them.
who does.
I sometimes feel like it's a little too easy to pull on the heartstrings, but I don't know. I leave that to reality. It's sad enough in reality. So that's still a good movie. It's not what I'm gonna go back and watch, I'll be honest. It's like watching Requiem for a Dream again. It's just so fucking depressing. This one is not as depressing as that by far. It's definitely ends on like a lighter note, that he's having a good time with his daughter and doing the things that he did with their her mom. Um, but yeah, it's just it's a little tough. I mean, the performances are really good. They bring out a lot in these characters. Um, and that's certainly like that the emotions are always hitting those scenes. But sometimes it's like Andrew Garfield's character, Tobias, he'll just storm off or whatever, and then he'll just like skip to something else. That's why I don't like nonlinear storytelling sometimes. I feel like it hurts tension. Um, and it's an interesting choice. I think it works, but I don't know whether it works all the way through the film.
I I think if you get on board with the nonlinear storytelling early on and can appreciate that we're just putting a pause on the tension rather than blowing it up entirely, it works. At least it did for me. Because
Yeah.
when he would storm off and then we would cut, like you said, to a happier time, like the cancer diagnosis, it stayed in the back of my mind, like we're not done with that.
Well, the problem
That's still got
was
to be
that
figured out.
it didn't always go back to like that scene. It would skip to the past and it would skip to the future and then skip to the back to the middle and skip to that's what hurt the tension for me.
Like I think the biggest one for me was when he figured out or found out that the cooking competition was the date of their wedding, which
Oh
had
yeah.
Yeah,
And then it just
they
like,
skipped
and he
that is the
threw the
one. Yeah,
fucking invitations out, and it's like, okay.
and then they're there.
And then they go back, and it's like, oh, wait, what?
yeah. That
It's
I
a
will
little
admit that
much
that
at
one
points.
that was a drawback for me.
Also, I mean maybe this was part of the point too. Uh but I couldn't tell sometimes whether she was having pains from being pregnant, having pains from her cancer. Um, which again, it was ovarian cancer. Maybe that's kind of like meant to be alluding to each other. But
I mean, that would make sense.
so yeah, I mean, I guess that could be a strength. Sometimes it works in weird ways. But yeah, I don't
I,
know.
I think I think with a movie like this, yes, the story is strong, and yes, the choice to tell it in a nonlinear way is, shall we say, divisive for guys like us who talk about movies on podcasts. But what this film really, for me, boils down to is the two performances. And I think not only Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh on their own in each scene that they have, whether it's Andrew Garfield acting solo in a hotel room signing divorce papers with a woman that we have not met, that we don't meet in the film, or whether it's Florence Pugh with her sous chef at the competition, whether they're acting on their own or whether they're showing off their ridiculous chemistry, just the two of them, they carry the film when the narrative does not. And I think no matter which time period we're in, when we're seeing these two, it almost doesn't matter what's going on because I'm so entranced and enthralled by the performances that they're giving. That is the takeaway from this movie for me.
That's fair.
Yeah, they're good performances.
And damn it, when we did Challengers back in April, I thought Zendaya's running away with the Oscar. Florence is running away with the Oscar here.
I'd have to think about that one.
Well, yeah,
I think
I
there's
mean,
other
we have
movies.
we have until February, and I'm probably going to change my mind again. We'll talk about it at the
There,
Oscars episode. I just wanted to get that out there.
there are definitely other movies,
I don't know.
other
Last year
considerations.
it basically became a two-horse race between Lily Gladstone and Emma Stone.
I
And I don't know. We'll see. Um, what did you guys think as a character choice it shows about Almut Almut, excuse me, to I felt it was a little cliched to hide the diagnosis or not the diagnosis, the competition from Tobias. But what do you make of the character choice to
I thought
continue
it
on
was.
despite the diagnosis, to keep
Well, I
going
mean,
with the cooking?
I think
I think it
that's
makes
cool.
sense.
I think the hiding it and then the simultaneous like half argument where Andrew's upset for a minute and then he's like, okay, and throws out all the invitations. It's unnecessary. There are some points where I felt like they were still giving good performances, but it felt like unnecessary scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think it makes sense for her character, right? She's been set up as this high strung, um, award, almost like Olympic level figure skater, and then be turns into this Michelin star chef. She's gonna be high strung. She's
She's a perfectionist.
gonna be this person that is so competitive in all facets of her life. And why should this cancer diagnosis be any different? She's trying to find this one way in which she can, you know, emerge from it and not be defined by cancer. And it's through her cooking at this point. And then it goes full circle and they finally skate together in like the last scene of the movie before she dies. And as it pans away and, they get further and further away, and it's like, oh yeah, she's dying. Like, okay, I get it. Like, it makes sense.
For the briefest moment, I thought they might not get water.
No, there's no way she was living.
I don't know.
No
I
shot.
she
thought,
had,
and maybe she
she had
would.
stage three ovarian cancer that metastasized.
I
What is she
thought,
gonna do?
I thought they might leave it at the end of the movie with, yeah, we know she's gonna die eventually, but still the three of them are together.
No, that would be a bad ending. It would
I don't
just
know
be
if that would be
like
a bad ending. It might be a
it
cop out.
would.
It would be a little
Well,
bit of a
yeah,
cop
that's
out.
a cop out is a bad ending.
Not always. I can't think of any examples, but not always.
A cop out is always a bad ending. It
That
means they
would be
didn't
like
have the
if
balls.
Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone got together at the end of La La Land. Like, I would kill myself.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
it's
would
like
that would ruin the movie. Yeah.
Like, that would that would
most
that would
times it
be
ruins the
that
movie.
would ruin this movie, right? Because it's like,
Okay.
yeah, we know she's gonna die.
I didn't say I
I,
was rooting for it. I just said I thought it might happen.
Nah, she was
For the
always
I
dying.
briefest
knew I
moment,
knew as
it
soon as
popped
they
in my
introduced
head.
cancer, she was as good as dead. And we're just gonna get to see the moments in between that.
That is kind of a movie cliche that is done every
That
time
that was,
cancer
I
is
guess,
mentioned.
also it was hard to like watch the movie, and I think that's why I don't like cancer stories. It's because almost never are they getting better. Almost never. Or you get like Walter White who gets better, but turns out he's a monster. That's a cool cancer story idea. Um,
Breaking Bad,
sometimes it could
one of the
work,
best
but
television shows of all time.
well, yeah, but you see, like what I'm getting at. So I
Yeah.
just feel like it's a little too cliche of a story beat. Obviously, the performances are great. It's always going to work to tug on people's heartstrings, but I guess I don't like it because of
It's like
that.
dog movies. Like it's not
Yeah,
gonna work.
Dog movies, yeah. I think this movie, I went in expecting heartbreak because that's what I had heard about the film and that's what I figured from the premise. Um, and that expectation was met. This story will break your heart,
yeah,
whether it
it was
whether it
sad,
relies
but
on whether it relies on the performances tugging at your heartstrings or the fact that it's a cancer story, which is, like Ben said, a really easy way to break your heart. I think this movie delivers on what it intends to.
I feel like it ends on a happier note than a lot of movies. So for what it encompasses for most of the film, it feels like a somewhat good ending, at least the happiest that there could be, like him and
Yeah.
his daughter, reliving the things with their mom.
I mean, it's what she would want. That's what she wanted. So she said
Mhm.
that. I think, I hope one day our daughter is gonna look back on her mom and, not think of her being sick, but of the happy stuff. And that's cooking and that's hanging out with the dogs and the chickens and her dad, like it's
Yeah, and I think that the
fun.
dog was a
Yeah.
nice
And
touch.
the great moment of Tobias teaching their daughter how to cook
Yeah.
Hmm.
or how to crack an egg was
Hmm.
just,
But like it's a happier ending than like Marley and Me. Marley
well,
and Me,
yeah,
the
that's
dog
one of
just
the saddest
fucking
endings of
dies.
all time.
It was
I
a PG movie.
They
What
half
can't
a
a
do that with
star on
TV,
Letterboxd,
man.
half a star for Marley and Me.
No, I understand. I honestly understand that rating because that movie,
That movie broke me at 12 years old.
so sad.
This movie, I don't
That's
know
a
if it
rule
would
though in
I don't know if it
film.
would break a 12-year-old.
Dogs dying is always more sad than the humans, no matter what
In
terrible
every
things.
every single film.
A
That's
dog could just
why
show up and die.
when we did fucking Arthur the King back in the spring, and they led you on like six different times whether the dog was gonna die or not. That was an
I
emotional roller coaster for me. Just
I knew
focusing
the
on,
dog
is
was
the
gonna
dog gonna
live.
survive? Is the dog gonna survive? And then you
It's
don't know,
based
and
on a
then you
true
do know.
story. They're not adapting the dog died. He almost made it, but he died. That would
I
be
gotta
a
watch that
horrible
movie
thing to
again,
adapt.
knowing what I know now. It was a fun movie. It wasn't great, but it was fun.
It's okay.
And
Mark
Ben,
Wahlberg.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I find We Live in Time to be a movie that I would rewatch multiple times.
I mean,
Because
it's
it's not,
good.
like you said, it's not as much of a downer as some cancer dramas are.
It's just got cancer in it. That's
Yeah, I
it's
would
like
watch it multiple times just for the performances.
I don't know.
I can
It's like
extract
being
that
in the
from this.
Holocaust and then watching Holocaust movies. You know?
I don't know.
no. Let me get out in front of that. No, I don't know.
It's just depressing. It reminds you of bad things.
Yeah,
At that point, I
there are bad things in the world, and I think a lot of artists find it as their duty to present the tough topics in life in a palatable way for audiences.
I suppose.
And I think this film, again, I just said it a second ago, it's a lot easier to watch than a lot of cancer stories.
It is. It's still got cancer.
Yeah. Well, I think
Kind of like
we,
Harvey
I-
Weinstein. That's a happy story, though.
well, on that note, I think we can call this a mixed bag review on behalf of the three of us. I think I enjoyed it more than these two. I think Max.
The
It was
movie
pretty,
is
it was pretty
good.
damn good. It was pretty damn
I
good.
enjoyed it. Even if I'm
Okay,
criticizing it, it's more just like my personal
fuck me then.
bias. But it's a good movie.
Teach me to speak in generalizations.
It's just
No,
got cancer.
we can recommend this one. Um,
Yeah, definitely go
if you
see it.
if you're a fan of Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield, if you're a fan of clear Oscar
Unless you are
contenders
currently
in the fall,
experiencing cancer, don't go see this movie.
if you're going through a health crisis like that, um, maybe not now to watch this
Yeah,
film.
it's don't do that now.
Don't. Yeah. Um, so next week we will be back. We are wrapping up a trilogy of films from Sony. It's the follow-up to one of the first movies we ever did on the pod 3 years ago. We're talking about Venom: The Last Dance.
Yikes.
Let's get that one over with, and then we can talk about Tom Hanks and Robin Wright the week after.
It's
All
cancer
right.
as a movie, actually.
Good night.
A symbiote
Good
is
night.
kind of like cancer, if you think about
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Good night.
All right, good night, everybody.